Welcome to the Kelly Patrick Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. In today's episode, I am joined by Ancap Tim. Tim, thanks so much for coming on the show. How are you today?
Hey, doing good. It's good to be here. Thanks for
You,
having me.
you're certainly welcome. If it's all right, being this is the first time we've got to chat on the show before, could you introduce yourself to the Kelly Patrick Show audience? Who's Ancap Tim? I know you're a creator, really. You're kind of an artist. Who is Ancap Tim?
Yeah, well, Ancap Tim is a shit poster, a memer, a singer songwriter, um, a homesteader, a dad. All that stuff wrapped up into one. Mainly spend most of my time, just doing music and some monologue commentary, here and there. But yeah, that's just an annoyance, hopefully, to the state and statist. Well, they probably don't even know who I am, but hopefully, I'm an annoyance to somebody, and I'm on some kind of federal list, watch list, or something. Hopefully,
What does being a homesteader mean?
being a homesteader, I think it means different things for different people. I'm not one
What
of
does it
those.
mean to you? Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'll preface it by saying this: I'm not one of those guys that thinks that you can do everything. I don't think you can be totally 100% self-sufficient. I think you've got to have a little bit of a community. You've got to have a little bit of people, neighbors to barter with, to trade with, because you can't be good at everything, and you can't necessarily always grow everything you need or raise everything you need. For me, it's I raise sheep. I have meat sheep, and Katahdin sheep. They're what you call hair sheep. They're not wool sheep, so that they're not as much. There's not as much involved in them. You're just basically, you know, breeding them and raising the lambs up for meat, or just to sell. And then I do a little bit of some gardening and stuff, mainly just for us. We don't really sell a whole lot of that. Been getting into garlic, raising garlic, and maybe start selling some of that, because that's um, pretty easy to do too. So yeah, I'm a lazy homesteader. I like to do stuff that's easy. So we have chickens. The sheep are pretty easy to deal with, and then we have ducks and geese on the pond. We have a pond um, that, but we don't really do anything with the ducks or geese. So, and the reason I bought land with a pond on it is because, again, I'm a lazy farmer. I don't want to have to figure out water for the sheep, so they always have access to the pond, and so uh, yeah, for homesteading for me is that, the sheep for meat, and also I'll raise a pig maybe here and there. Tried raising pigs, but pigs can be difficult. Just there can be destructive, so I kind of stay away from them. But so yeah, it's mainly just gardening and garlic. I want to get into beekeeping, just for the honey. So have some garlic and honey and eggs and um, lamb. So that's kind of what it is for me.
That sounds amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
Um, Anarcho capitalist is, I guess, what would probably closely describe at least my political, I don't know, my ideology, what I would
Yeah.
subscribe to personally. Of course, your name is Ancap Tim. Could you give me a little bit of your backstory for kind of your evolution? Like when you were a little kid, were you always an anarchist when you were a little kid? How did that evolution go? Did you go through a process where maybe you were a Republican for many years?
Mhm.
What was that evolution process like for you?
Yeah, for me, I grew up in a pretty conservative household, evangelical Christian, and so, eh, like a hand in a glove, the Republican Party, and that kind of goes with being an evangelical Christian, especially in the '90s, when I was coming up. So I grew up listening to Rush Limbaugh. And still, looking back, I liked a lot of what Rush did. He was a shock jock for the most part, which is something that I always liked. But yeah, Mr. Republican on my 18th birthday, I had George W. Bush on my birthday cake, like a a
Mm.
printout picture. I was so excited I get to vote for him in '04. I was turning 18, and so yeah, I had it bad. Eh, uh,
I appreciate you owning that.
yeah, no, I mean, it's uh, hey, I came from a bad spot, so
I certainly voted for him in '04 also. So
yeah,
full disclosure.
yeah, I mean, you can't do nothing about it. You got to live, learn from it, and move on. But yeah, Ron Paul was the catalyst for me, and like so many others, um, watching him at the primary for the '08 primary with Rudy Giuliani, and when he doubled down, he said something about blowback and how it's a real thing, and that if we weren't engaged in all this meddling overseas, then possibly 9/11 wouldn't have happened, and if you believe the official story, which I've come not to, but uh, at the time, and I was like, "What the heck? You can't say that," like, and then Rudy Giuliani, "You need to apologize. You need to apologize," and he was like, he doubled down, like, "No, I'm not apologizing." His little squeaky voice, and I just I was like, didn't quite totally embrace it, because I grew up on George W. Bush, the biggest interventionist, in my lifetime. But just the fact that he had the balls that he had just really opened my eyes to start taking him seriously, and start reading some of his stuff and watching him closer. And by the time 2012 came along, I was in that Ron Paul revolution camp. I had the t-shirts and all that. And then, it's a slow fade to anarchy, from the GOP to libertarianism to the Libertarian Party. I was big in that for a while. Gary Johnson, and then you kind of get to the point where it's just like, what is the point of all this political stuff? Not to say that there's anything wrong with it, because Ron Paul was the person who opened my eyes, and he was a GOP congressman, so it takes all different people in this liberty movement. And that's what I wish some people in the anarchy movement could get a hold of and stop being so, having this purity test for everything. And it takes all walks of life to be a part of this liberty movement. And so, but me personally, I've kind of outgrown political parties, and it's not something that I want to be a part of. So, I got so much by being in the GOP and then the Libertarian Party, and it's just like, why? What is the point of all this? It's we're not getting anywhere. I think it's better to focus on pulling back from the system personally, homesteading, um, black markets, like all the meat I sell, we don't, it's not FDA approved and all this stuff, um, I, to me, that is how we win the battle, is little steps, and just getting people to realize, wait, the state's just a mafia, and I don't want to be a part of them.
Give a plug for your T-shirt.
Yeah,
Actually,
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's my T-shirt. The state's just the mafia.
and people can get that where?
At ancaptim.com. You can go to ancaptim.com. They have all the music, the YouTube videos, all the merch. It has links to all those things. Yep.
So you're not actually. Let me ask you. Come from a background within an evangelical right-leaning crowd.
Mm-hmm.
How have they taken to you taking a turn for the anarchy?
Most of them didn't. I got accused of, when I was just Mr. Ron Paul, and following him. I got accused of being a rebel rouser, and I'm just trying to stir up trouble with people in the church, because I was actually a music minister at the time as well. And so yeah, I wasn't even an anarchist, but I was just didn't want to support John McCain. I wanted to support Ron Paul, and yeah, I caught it then. You're not towing the line. I mean, this guy's a kook. He's crazy. he doesn't believe in all these wars, and he doesn't support Israel. He didn't go over there and kiss the damn wall, and all this stuff. And so, yeah, I caught it even before I went anarchist. As I could see myself going to anarchy, I kind of, got out of the church. I still go to church, but got out as far as a leadership role. I was just like, I don't want any part of this, to be in a leadership role and to have to answer for my politics, So yeah, I caught it from from that community a little bit.
You said you still go to church. Do
Mhm.
you see your anarcho views consistent with your Christian worldview?
I do, yeah, because I think Jesus was an anarchist. I think the scripture is very anti-state. If you look at it from a certain lens, especially like 1 Samuel chapter 8, where the children of Israel wanted a king. They wanted to be like everybody else. We want a king. Everybody else has a king. We want a king. And God's like, well, I thought I was your king. Um, and and he's like, okay, well, if you want a king, I'm going to tell you, he's gonna tax you, and he's going to send your kids to war. He's going to take your daughters, all this stuff. And they're like, we don't care. We want a king. Uh, that's very anti-state. That is coming from God's mouth in 1 Samuel. And then you look at all the crap that the kings do. The guy who we all say is the best king, David, he had a guy murdered on the battlefield because he wanted a piece of tail. Like, these aren't good people, and it shows us that power corrupts. And so, even the Old Testament, I think, if you look at it with some open eyes, you can see the anti-state just coming out of it. Like all the prophets, Jeremiah, he was killed by the nation. All the prophets were killed by kings. And then you get into the captivity and all that with Babylon and all that. I mean, Nebuchadnezzar makes a statue bow down to the state, and the three Hebrew children say, no, we're not going to bow. Anti-state. And you get in the time of Jesus. I think Jesus was very anti-state. We just watched The Chosen. Watched that with my kids, my daughters, and they got to the part where the Pharisees asked the gotcha question, the damned if you do, damned if you don't question about taxes. Is it right to render taxes unto Caesar, to pay tribute? And they did a horrible job of that in The Chosen. I like it. I still like the show, but I like the way they portray Jesus, but horrible. They basically had Jesus saying, "More roads," like, "Oh well, we got to have roads." And I was like, "What?" But if you look at what Jesus said, he knew it was a trap. He knew he was going to be in trouble if he said yes. He was going to be in trouble if he said no. He's going to be in trouble if he said yes by the crowd, because they were not pro-Roman. Yes, you have to pay taxes to Caesar. The crowd was going to turn on him. They might have killed him. If he said no, the Romans were going to take him. So it was damned if you do, damned if you don't. And Jesus never said yes or no. Jesus said, I got a coin. You got a coin? Okay, yeah. Who's this guy on this coin? It's Caesar, right? Who does Caesar claim to be? He claimed to be divine. He claimed to be God, the Son of God. It's actually what it said on the coins, on the denarius. And then he said, well, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and unto God what is God. He never said yes or no. He basically told them, this is my interpretation, that you've already picked your God. You've already picked your side. You've picked the state. You're using the guy's money in your temple that claimed to be God's temple. You're using the money of a guy who claims to be God. And so you've already made your choice. Your God is the state. Your God is Caesar. And so, render unto him what is his, but it's the God what is God's. And I think he was talking to the people when he said that. That's my interpretation. But still, I think Jesus is pretty anti-state. Paul was pretty anti-state. He was killed by the state. John was pretty anti-state. He was marooned on an island, so I think it fits pretty good, but everybody doesn't agree with me on that.
Would you say the Christian faith is manipulated by the political
Yes.
powers that be in our country much?
Yes, especially the moral majority, that Jerry Falwell, I come from the Baptist background, still go to a Baptist church, but yeah, and it's still rampant, that moral majority that we've got to get involved in politics, and we've got to have a foothold. And yeah, it definitely has just taken over the church. Um, that add dispensationalism to that. This idea that Israel is still God's chosen people, and that there's this divide between Israel and the church, and that it's not just people who believe in Christ and people who don't. There's people who don't believe in Christ, and then there's people who believe in Christ, but then there's this separate little Israel out here too. And we've got to make sure we always support them. We always got to take care of them, because God will judge us if we don't. And I think that has been the most detrimental to the church, is dispensationalism in the last, well, it's an old, it goes back to the 1800s, but in my lifetime, I think it's been totally one of the worst things for the church is dispensationalism. And then you add on to that moral majority republicanism. Yeah. It just makes people who claim to serve the Prince of Peace cheer on war way too often.
What are the common arguments you hear against, if you say, hey, this is, Jesus was the Prince of Peace, why would we support war in his name?
Yeah.
What are some common rebuttals you may hear?
People rebutting me?
What I've heard is, Jesus talks about peace, when he comes back, something like that, like not necessarily peace for the time being. I don't know. But what's a common pro-war argument in the name of Jesus? Are you familiar with any good ones?
Well, most of them, if they revolve around the nation state of Israel, they will say that it's just God's, it's one pastor told me not too long ago, who am I to say how God decides to, if he uses Israel to run all of the people out of Gaza so that Israel can have more land? And this is clearly God's plan, that will tell me, so who am I to say, God, you shouldn't do it this way? And I'm like, well, you don't have to support it. You don't have to openly be like, even if you think that that's God's plan, which I don't. Just why would you want to just degrade your theology so much that you're becoming more political than you are a follower of Christ? But that's a big one, is just Israel can do whatever they want because they're God's chosen people. And, it's God said it was going to happen. So, we have to support them. It's like, do we, because when Jesus was on the earth, he called the nation state of Israel brood of vipers. He called them hypocrites. And they're the ones that called for his death. So, I don't see how anything has changed as far as that goes.
Tim, you said you've been a musician your whole life?
Not my whole life. Raised in a pretty musical family. Grew up playing in church, played bass guitar. My uncle taught me how to play the bass guitar. And then I kind of went from there onto keys and then a little bit of rhythm guitar. And so, yeah, been playing in church most of my life, and went on the road with a friend of mine. We did like a duo called Avery Road. It was a Christian band, and we did that for about 3.5 years, right up till COVID. And that was kind of when I was starting to get more anarchist. And I was like, yeah, I probably shouldn't be a music minister at this point. And then because I'm going to have to hide. Well, that's kind of the reason why I started going by Ancap Tim online, is because I'm just like, yeah, I don't want everybody that goes to this church to think I'm crazy. I was proud of what I was saying, but I just knew how people would react. It's just, so that I started making that, my exit out of not the church, but being employed by a church. And so did the Christian band thing, because there was a little more freedom with being in a Christian band. And, I was like, I can do what I say and do what I want now, as long as it's not anti-Christ, so that was freeing. And then COVID, and then I was just like, well, I'm just I'm gonna work on some of these things that's been in my head. These songs, these ANCAP songs, these anti-state songs, and so that gave me an opportunity to really just work on some of that I had just had, notes in my phone, little ideas. And so COVID was rough on me, and like a lot of people, but it gave me the opportunity to kind of work on some things that I probably wouldn't have. I probably wouldn't have never done this music if not for COVID. It pissed me off. I mean, I was mad during
So
that time.
COVID made you more of an anarchist, huh?
Oh yeah, just a bit.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty much in the anarchist camp before COVID. COVID made me angry, and so a way to an outlet for that anger was writing, and writing ANCAP Tim music or anti-state music.
You seem to reject dispensationalism, yet you have stayed within a Baptist church.
Yes.
Is your interpretation of being a Baptist Christian is that dispensationalism is not part of your belief system, and so therefore you're still a Baptist? How does that work?
Well, I don't think all Baptists have to be dispensationalists.
Okay.
I think a lot of people really don't care about Bible prophecy all that much, which is probably a good thing. I mean, if you're going to get involved in Bible prophecy, I like Bible prophecy, but don't be so dogmatic on it, because it's just you can't be. And you need to be open when it comes to Bible prophecy. If your Bible prophecy makes you support genocide, then you might need to
I had a feeling that
yeah.
what do they say? If it pay attention to the fruit that it bears.
Yeah. I think it's pretty important. I mean, if your theology makes you support things that are not right, then you should maybe rethink your theology. And I think dispensationalism is dangerous in that respect. But I will say there are some dispensationalists that will not go that far. Like, they believe that God has a plan for Israel, and I will even maybe say that there's a prophetic aspect to, there's a remnant from the Jewish people, possibly. I'm more of a replacement theologist, but I'm open to that idea. But there's dispensationalists that believe that Israel has a purpose, and that they are going to receive the Messiah one day. But they're not supporters of the nation state of Israel. They're like, that's not Israel. I'm talking about Jewish people that are going to come to Christ. I'm not talking about Benjamin Netanyahu and his band of mafia, and I'm like, that's refreshing to hear. So I don't want to throw them all under the bus. I think you can be dispensationalist and be sound. But for the most part, your biggest voices in the dispensationalist community are usually the loudest in support of the nation state of Israel. But you don't want to go to the extreme the other way, where you end up like Nick Fuentes, or whatever his name is, where you become a Nazi, and just
What are your thoughts on Nick Fuentes?
I don't have a whole lot to say about the guy. I think he's a Nazi. I saw a statement.
He seems to have said many positive things about Hitler, even when confronted about it.
Yeah, and he even made a statement the other day. It's like, we need to give up this whole idea of freedom, and we need order. The whole point of government is for order. And I'm like, I mean, he's just he's just embracing it now. I think he's just a little Hitler. He definitely hates Jewish people and black people. So, and I think he would stand by that. So you don't want to be you don't want to go so far the other way that you become racist. Like, I have no problem with Jewish people. One of the biggest reasons that I have my stance on Israel that I have is because of a Jew named Dave Smith. He's a Jew, but he's anti the genocide and anti the state of Israel for the most part, because their hands are so dirty. He's a Jew. So it doesn't mean that if you're anti-Israel that you're anti-Jewish people. and nor should it. I think we need to reject the Nazis too, because there ain't nothing good about Nazis. I mean, like, what? It's crazy that people have gone so far to the extreme. It's like, wow.
Sitting here with this beautiful libertarian philosophy, and then at times it seems that
Yep.
the Nick Fuentes crowd is arguably getting more popular than the more people come into the libertarianism.
Yes.
You're like, hey, what the hell, guys? You're missing a lot of the most important stuff. He openly has said we need to let go of the idea of free markets.
Yeah. Yeah. That was the one. There, you got it.
He said free markets, but also he was talking, I think, something else about freedom.
Yeah.
And he said, we need authority, we need, control.
Mhm.
It doesn't sound real pleasant from the libertarian type lens.
No, and even if you don't want to go to the extreme of Nick, there's a lot in the libertarian world, and I'm not to throw them under the bus or anything. I think they're good people, but they haven't let go of this left versus right thing,
Interesting. Okay.
and they still want to hold on to, well, the right is right, and it's like, well, but don't you see how that they're using this left versus right thing? Like anybody that constantly talks about blue-haired, obese, fat women all the time, I'm just like, I think maybe you have been fooled, because they've got you focused on the other side so much that you can't
Sure.
see that it's the state versus us. It's not left versus right. So I think we can, even in our own circles, we need to be mindful of that. And what was the question about? Well, as far as Nick Fuentes and how this equates, I think the bordertarians, the libertarians that want a strong border and good people, I disagree. If you have a strong border, that means you have a police state. And I don't see how you have a strong border and strong immigration policy without having a police state. And we see it. I mean, look at ICE. I mean, I think the White House released on their TikTok page today, which is kind of interesting that they have a TikTok page now. It's like they made a deal so that TikTok made a deal so that they didn't get banned. But they have a White House TikTok page now, and it was some song. I can't remember the name of the song. Maybe Another One Bites the Dust, or I don't know. It was very off-putting, basically showing ICE just busting in and taking people and regardless of your views on immigration, it's like that's a police state. I mean, if you think they shouldn't be here, okay, I think people should have freedom of movement. And then people equate this country like private property. They'll say, well, would you have somebody come in your house and just take up residence? It's like, well, that's my house. You're talking in this collective of like this country is your house. Like somebody can walk down the street and not invade your privacy. And so what about the people who come over here and let's say I hire somebody to work on my farm. Farm's not near big enough, but let's just say it was. And I give them a place to rent. They're paying me money. And most of them are doing that are over here. So it's like, where's this old idea of private property? That makes no sense. But anyway, I think we can find common ground with even those, I'm not here to be like, it's got to be my way or the highway, but if you're going to be anti-state, I don't see how you can be pro-ICE or pro a strong military or strong border or any of that stuff.
Probably not the most popular opinion for you to bring up on Sunday at your church crowd.
Oh, no. I actually even talked to a pastor not too long ago. He was from New York, and he came to the church I go to, and he was talking about from the pulpit, basically saying we shouldn't be so political and so quick to be like it's right wing only, and because there's a lot of people that go to my church that, I have to appeal to a broader audience and it's more about Jesus than it is a political party. And I was like, hey man, so I talked to him.
That is
afterwards.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I talked to him afterwards and I was like, to see how far I could get with him.
Yeah.
And he was like, we were talking about different things, talking about immigration and whatnot. And he said, yeah, He said, there's some people at my church that are immigrants, are illegal immigrants, and when they got saved, they then just decided to go back to Mexico because it was the right thing to do. And I was like, hmm, okay, like, so you think they should, because they broke the law, that they're not people and they deserve to.
Self-deport is what it's
Yeah,
being
yeah, yeah.
called.
So yeah, and I guess it's fine if their conscience told them that, but I don't know if it was so much their conscience
I
as
think
it
there
was.
was a lot of urging to self-deport. My wife's from
Yeah.
Cuba, and a lot of the Cubans who were in the process of seeking asylum
Mm.
when this all went down, a lot of that got frozen, and they were kind of urged, officially were urged, sent emails telling, we're urging you to self-deport.
Wow. Yeah. And probably add to that, the church was probably telling them that as well,
Jeez, yeah.
because Trump's doing the right thing, right?
So rhetorically, you appreciated what this guy said on the pulpit,
Yeah. But
but
then we talked to him.
upon cross-examination, not so impressed.
No, not so impressed, even though he said more from the pulpit than most would. So, I think we did have some common ground, but yeah, I couldn't prod him to say that the laws of man are trumped by God's laws. I couldn't get in there.
What about this? I've heard people say if your pastor or priest didn't meant the Sunday after Charlie Kirk was killed, if your pastor or your priest didn't talk about Charlie Kirk at your service on Sunday, then you need to find a new church.
A new church, yeah.
What do you think of
Well,
that?
I think that's a pretty stupid statement. But I mean, my pastor did. It was kind of hitting. He touched on it and kind of moved off of it. Yeah, I mean, he was a Christian. Kirk was. I don't think he was necessarily a martyr of the faith. Some people would disagree with me wholeheartedly there. I think he was. It'd be like, all right, me. I'm not Charlie Kirk, but we kind of do the same thing. Like I push a political or an ideology. He did with Turning Point. He happened to be Christian, but his main purpose was not to spread Christ. Now, on my album, if you listen to my album, the last song on there is "No King But Christ." It's a very Christian message, but with an anarchist slant to it. So I preach Christ in my own way. But if somebody was to shoot me, I don't think many people would say he's a martyr for Jesus, unless I was in the middle of preaching, and somebody came and shot me. So I can't extend the same idea to Charlie Kirk. His message was primarily not the message of the gospel. His message was with Turning Point USA was GOP populism, Trumpism. I mean, it's what he pushed. Basically, he was a little Trump, which is
Team
fine.
Red.
Yeah, Team Red, and it's nothing wrong with that. It's from a good person standpoint. There's a lot of good people that are in that camp. I don't think that he was a martyr for Christ. And immediately after, I just had weird feelings. And then Erica Kirk and all of her stuff coming out, the fireworks, and the whole thing is just weird. I don't know if I necessarily go totally in the camp of Candace Owens, but
What?
definitely
You won't adopt everything she said?
No, I don't think I'll do that, but I'm definitely closer to her than I am.
Sure. And as far when I say that, I don't mean to discount any of the stuff she said because I really don't know. So I'm not saying it's not true.
Right.
The way she says things sometimes does come across kind of like in a real psychopath style.
Yes, it does. It does. But I'm glad people are listening to her and Tucker Carlson.
Sure.
Because I think it could be a gateway to us. Like Ron Paul was for me. Even though Ron Paul is definitely more sound than Candace Owens or Tucker Carlson, but I think it's good that people are finding them instead of the mainstream media and not believing what the official story is. I think that's great. And I'll even say, even if the official story is correct, I'm glad that people aren't buying the official story. because
Part of me thinks if, like, say Israel did do it, let's
yeah,
assume Israel did it. Man, this sure has blown up in their face because it does not look good for them at all right now. I would say this has expedited the tide turning on that
mhm,
narrative. Would you
yeah,
agree?
yes, but I do see that Israel is using the dispensationalist to try to flip it back the other way. Like because now you'll see right after Charlie Kirk died, a lot of people were watching Candace Owens. Now, in certain circles like my Baptist church, it's like, yeah, Candace is crazy. I don't know if you should watch Candace. And so you're starting to see them pull back. But yeah, if Israel did it, yeah, I don't know if it served them all that well. Um, and maybe they didn't care about it. They were just getting somebody out of the way that pissed them
Getting
off. And that's typical
that's
mob,
scary. Yeah.
yeah, mafia behavior. And Bibi Netanyahu is definitely a mob boss type guy. So I, I wouldn't put it past him. I'm not going to say he did it, but I'm not going to say he didn't.
Do you so you are an anarchist, you do not vote. Dave Smith, who we're both a fan of,
Mm-hmm.
ended up voting for Trump in
I know.
2024.
Tore my heart out.
Okay. What are your thoughts on that? Does that discredit Dave?
No. See, I'm not one of these guys that think that now everything he says is bullshit because he went on the Donald Trump train.
Okay.
I think it's crazy to do that. Now, do I hold Dave in as high of regard that I used to? No. I think there are consequences for people. If you're going to be that dumb to think that Trump is going to be different when you already had 4 fucking years. Sorry, excuse my French. 4 years to see how this man governed, and now it's going to be different this time. And it would all be because of they were scared to death of the left. The left versus right divide just really kicked them in the ass, and they were so scared of the blue-haired fatsos that we've got to get on. We got to get on this Trump train. Tom Woods too is another guy that he probably wasn't as far anti-state as Dave Smith was, but still, him coming out and supporting Trump just both of them just really bothered me. And and they've since had to eat crow, and good on them. That was dumb. And Dave even said that I probably shouldn't have supported Donald Trump. Nah, Dave. So yeah, he's definitely not as high on my list as he used to be. Maybe he'll work his way back up, but I'm not going to throw him out though because of that.
Sure. When you get to be in that circle where you're friends with Vivek, Angelo, they were meeting with what? Donald Trump Jr., I think. I mean, you're close to potentially, who knows at that point, negotiating in to actually, make an impact on something.
Sure.
Basically, they made the decision to try to play ball versus supporting Chase. Those were kind of the two options.
Yeah, but you gotta think. Even if I play ball and everything goes according to plan, do you really think these people are going to keep their word? I mean,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you have to be very naive to be like somebody like Dave Smith that calls politics for the most part what it is, a total bullshit. To then buy into that bullshit, it was disheartening for me. But I guess we
Okay.
all live and learn. Hey, I had George Bush on my 18th birthday cake, so I'm not going to be the first one to cast stones. But
I'm sure you've heard the clip. Tim Pool is very upset with Candace Owens for dividing the right. He predicts that she's going to screw around and make the Republicans lose the presidential race in 2028, and he's furious about that. As an anarchist, what are your thoughts on that take by Tim Pool? Another Tim. What are
yeah,
your thoughts on his take?
well, this Tim doesn't give a shit what that Tim says. I never liked the guy. I never had much use for him. Never been a big fan of Candace, but I'd take Candace over Tim if somebody put if it's that lesser of two evils, which I probably wouldn't vote for Candace either because I don't vote. But yeah, I don't know. I think the GOP is going to lose because this next time because it's the pendulum. I mean, the people are stupid and they go this side and then they come into this side. This side gains a little momentum and then this side gains a little momentum. It's just the natural swing of things. I'm not playing the game. I'm not getting involved in it. I'm not going to be a part of it. You know, I don't care. I just wish I try to wake people up in that pendulum swing. That's what I'm trying to do is hey, look, this is the same shit just 4 years later. Like, wake up. And that's what I can't understand. Me and my wife were having this discussion the other night is people that have been involved in politics and they're like boomers. So they're like 60, 70 years old or whatnot. And that they're still like, this election is the most important election of my lifetime. It's every year and they get played every year. They get excited and drummed up and it's because they got the news playing 24/7 and so that's why I think people like Candace and Tucker is a breath of fresh air because at least it's anti the establishment and anti media as mainstream media. And that might be a step in our direction for people. And so, yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to catch some of these people that are listening to Candace now or listen to Tucker Carlson and be like, hey, come a little bit. I've got some drugs over here I want like to give you, and try to introduce them to anarchy.
I love it. Well, Tim, thank you so much for coming on the show. Before we start the process of wrapping things up, could you make sure you have all your plugs and directions as to how people can see your music and everything before we wrap things up?
Yeah, well, ancaptim.com is the best place to find all the links. All my social links are on there. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and on YouTube. I just released a music video. One of the first music videos I've done. It was my 12-year-old daughter helped me film it. So, it wasn't a crazy budget film, but I think it turned out pretty cool.
It was good. The Santa one.
Yeah. The Santa one, Letters to Santa. And that came from a Michael Malice quote. If probably people know Michael Malice, they might know that quote of government and all its regulations are just letters to Santa. If enough people just say, yeah, I'm not believing it. So that's kind of what that song is about. But you can find that music video on YouTube. And there's links to YouTube on ancaptim.com. I have shirts. The album is called The State's Just a Mafia. The title track kind of on there is a song called State of Affairs. And it basically, the chorus says that the state's just a mafia. I have other shirts. One that says good ideas don't require force. As a song about that as well. And so you can find those at ancaptim.com. It's through Redbubble, but the link that'll take you there is all on ancaptim.com. On Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, every streaming thing you can think of. The album should be on it. And so just dropped, not a new song, it's not done yet, but I dropped a sneak peek of a song I'm working on called well, I don't even know if I have a title for it yet. But basically, the hook says it's not left versus right. It's the state we need to fight. And it's kind of a little bit of a more pop version of something that I don't do a whole lot of pop stuff, but that one's kind of a little more poppy, hopefully a little more catchy to get people, a little ear candy. But that's out there too, that you can, it's the first verse and chorus anyway. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Good stuff. Well, Ancap Tim, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah. I appreciate you having me.